right now, let's turn our attentions to the phone and congressional candidate Bobby Schilling. He's on the line right now. Bobby, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing?
We're doing great. How goes the campaign?
Things are going really, really well. We took care of getting our commercials filmed yesterday, and now we're just ready to go into the final 60-some days of this thing. So we're pretty excited and feeling like it's definitely a winnable race.
So Bobby, who played you in the commercials?
I know there was a big casting call.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they made me do it for some reason. I tried to get a fill-in, but couldn't do it.
Low budget, huh?
Yeah.
What about Matthew McConaughey, maybe? He's in everything these days. Bring him in.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good.
There's a lot to get to. We did want to start, though, with a little bit of, I don't want to say breaking news, but stuff we're just finding out over the last 24 hours or so about the IRS scandal. What we now know, apparently, according to Judicial Watch, is that the Lois Lerner emails exist. They're on a government backup government backup system, but the government says it's too much work to go try to grab those emails from the backup. And we also learn that Lois Lerner's BlackBerry, on which a number of those emails would have been kept, was destroyed, was wiped clean and then destroyed as scrap after her hard drive crash and after the congressional inquiry began. It smells more and more like there's a huge amount of work going into this to cover up a lot of information.
Yeah, here's the problem we have is we have, I believe, an administration, and the more information that we have come out, the more it looks as it is definitely a cover-up. We've known for a while that there's access to these hard drives because even though it's on an individual computer does not mean that they're gone forever. So, for the administration and the leaders out there to tell us that it's too difficult to pull up, I don't buy that. The American people don't buy that. I remember President Obama saying we're going to be the most transparent administration ever, and here we go, more cover-ups, more hiding, and I think that we're going to end up getting that information, and I think it's going to be pretty powerful against. And this isn't Democrat or Republican. This is American. Here you have one of the most powerful agencies in the entire country that can ruin your way of life. They can put you in jail. They can access your checking savings accounts. It's not like it's just a regular little agency. These people can do a lot of damage to a family, a human being, and really we've got to hold these folks accountable, be Democrat, Republican. It's an American issue that has to be fixed.
And, Bobby, what jumps out at us, and maybe you can shed a little light on this as well, we read the information that everything, all of these correspondences, all this kind of stuff is saved in a system in case some sort of catastrophe were to befall Washington, D.C. We'd be able to put pieces back together again because we've saved all these things. Were you briefed on this sort of system when you were a congressman?
I was not. I knew, though, if you talk to any of the major players out there, for example, like the John Deeres, the Caterpillars, even the CMB where I currently work, they all have backups set up. So if my individual, you've got servers set up, so if my individual computer crashes out, that main server houses all of that data and information. So it's just that they don't want to produce it because they know it's what I believe would be pretty damning to the IRS and to the administration for the cover-ups and the lies.
Bobby Schilling with us here. BobbySchilling.com. That's the website. He's running for Congress in the 17th District here in Illinois. Let's get into what's been happening in the race here with your opponent, Congresswoman Cheri Bustos, making some promises that have not been kept. And it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, we're going to play the audio here, Bobby, so hang with us for a second because this is the actual audio from a Chicago Tribune interview with both candidates, both Bobby Schilling and Cheri Bustos were there in front of the editorial board of the Tribune. And they're talking about Bobby Schilling, who, by the way, we can get back to this in a sec, Bobby, but you didn't take the government health insurance, you didn't take the government pension, turned them both down, promised to, then followed through. And they were asking Cheri Bustos about the same thing. Would she volunteer to do those things? We got these in two cuts. So this is the first cut, Cheri Bustos at the Chicago Tribune, or in front of the Chicago Tribune editorial board from 2012.
So you're not taking pension or pay increases until the budget's in balance? I'm saying cut congressional pay 10%.
So, but did you answer her question about, are you going to take pension and health care? Or are you
Yeah,
going to
my proposal is different from his. I'm saying that across the board, that we would take a 10%, members of Congress would take a 10% pay cut.
Personally,
Take a 10% pay cut until we get this budget under control.
you return 10% of your salary?
Yes.
All right, so at this point, she's talking about a bill that she would like to see come up for a vote that would cut everybody's salary 10%. Tribune says, would you give back 10% of your pay? She says, yes. Now, at this point, it could be they're just referring to the bill, perhaps. She'd agree to do that. Okay. But here's the second part where it gets far more specific.
I'm saying, though, this is a vote that every member of Congress takes a 10% pay cut, and there's a pay freeze until we get this under
Sorry, I'm confused. Are you, if you're elected, are you going to say to whoever the HR department, keep 10% of my pay?
I'm saying that we
It's
would...
yes or no. Are you going to voluntarily give up 10% of your salary?
Yes,
You-
I would propose that there is a vote to cut 10% of the pay
For everybody else.
for every member of Congress.
But you'd do it regardless.
I'm sorry?
You would do it regardless of how the vote comes
Yes.
out.
But when,
All right, so very clearly, Bobby, 2 times in that soundbite, would you voluntarily give up 10% of your pay regardless of whether the bill passes? Yes. And the follow-up again, regardless of whether that bill passes or comes up for a vote, you would give up 10% of your pay? The answer is yes. So has she done it, Bobby?
She has not. You know, the main thing here to remember is that, you know, when you make a promise, your promises made are promises kept. You know, for example, when I was running, you know, I promised not to take the health care, that I was going to reject the pension. I term limited myself. And, you know, my dad taught me as a little kid is that if you make a promise, you got to keep it. You know, this is a pattern that we're starting to see with the incumbent congresswoman, is that she makes promises, do or say anything to get elected, but then when it comes time to keep that promise, she looks at the people of the Illinois 17th District and then says that she misspoke 3 times in that interview.
So, I guess the bottom line is you're elected to Congress. Are you happy to sign on to that bill with 10% and give back whatever else you'd like to give back?
You know, I think it's really important. You know, every bill that came across, I co-sponsored if it had to do with cutting members of Congress pay by 10%. Thing, guys, that I think is really important is that by giving up the pension and the health care, I've already given up more than 10% of my pay by doing that. You know, if you keep in mind, Sherry Bustos, when they were going to try to eliminate the 75% subsidy members of Congress get, she was one of the very few members of Congress to vote no on that, which I would have definitely supported, eliminating that 75%. But this is all about leading by example, and that's one of the things that we did. We made promises. We kept each and every one of those. We're seeing a pattern with Sherry. She's definitely not keeping any of her promises that she made to the people.
Bobby Schilling with us, BobbySchilling.com. He's running for Congress, 17th District here in Illinois. We've talked a lot the past, year and a half or so about constituent service and being attentive to the needs of those that you serve. In what ways would a return of Bobby Schilling to Congress mean better services from the congressman from the 17th District?
You know, the one thing that we've heard a lot of on the campaign trail is the constituent services have just really plummeted. And, you know, one of the things that I told our folks in the office is when that telephone rings, those people calling in have expired every way and mean that they know possible to get something done, and they need our help. And whether it's a state issue, a local issue, or a federal issue, we need to direct those people to the proper channel. And I think that that's one thing that is not happening in the district now. It's more of a, hey, I've got a title. Keep in mind, we're a representative of the people. We're there to be a servant to the people. It's their voice that we carry to Washington and help them in every way that we can possible. And if we're successfully elected, what we're going to do is we're going to bring those great services back, because that's one of our main jobs, is to get things done for the people.
And we've talked in the past, and you've heard the common lament from people that, yeah, I do have a problem, I do have a complaint, I'd like my voice to be heard, and this person was all interested in me when it was time for me to vote for them, but when I called later on, they weren't quite as interested anymore.
Exactly right. And, you don't just show up when you're 4 or 5 months out from the election to say that you're now supporting the veterans. When we ran, we were with the veterans. When we ran, right after we were elected, we had forums with the veterans. Ms. Bustos waited until, the VA scandal before she decided to get out behind them. That was after she voted to cut $6 billion from those folks. These are the folks that put their life on the line. They put it all out there, and for anybody in Washington, D.C. to go out there and make a cut when there's so many other things that can be cut, to cut our veterans, the disabled veterans and their families, I think is completely wrong.
Bobby Schilling with us here, candidate for Congress, 17th District here in Illinois. It's Ronnie and Scott here on WROK. I want to revisit the last time you were on with us. We were talking about Obamacare hurting average, ordinary, everyday Americans. And you made a comment that your opponent and the DCCC really tried to seize upon, basically saying, hey, Obamacare costs are being passed along to virtually everyone, and there's a ton of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, and you said that includes you, that includes Bobby Schilling. And they said, well, that's crazy. Bobby Schilling's not living paycheck to paycheck, but in order to run for Congress again, you're not working like you used to. You're doing part-time. You're working part-time. So I know you don't want to make a big deal about this probably, but there are sacrifices to be made from candidates to run for Congress.
Yeah, the problem is that what happens is, Sherry Bustos and her allies, the DCCC and the other folks, they go back a year or two on what you used to make when you were working full-time. They pull that number to the forefront. And then they don't consider, or they don't want the people out there to consider that you're actually working part-time and you're not making as much. But, the thing is we look across America, and we see people struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. The economy is not getting any better. They continue to put more taxes, regulation, and what that does is that forces the middle class to struggle even more. And that's why we've got to have good people in there that don't go in so much as a Democrat or a Republican. They go in as an American, and how do we best serve the people of which we represent? And I think that that's the one thing. Sherry Bustos has never seen a tax increase that she doesn't like, whether it was on the city council on water and garbage rates, sewer. She voted for every single tax increase she could. And, she talks about a balanced approach. She's not interested in a balanced approach. She's interested in taxing people. And when it comes down, at the end of the day, what happens is her tax increase hit the middle class. These guys are crushing our middle class, and we've got to put an end to it. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I believe that we are definitely the better choice, because we are the middle class. And we understand those day-to-day, things that you have to deal with, and trying to figure out. So I think that we're excited about our opportunity here. It's not about getting a title. It's about serving people.
Well, you want to find out more? You go to BobbySchilling.com. Bobby, as always, we appreciate you taking time out of your day for us.
Thanks. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, Bobby.